Well, the Oppenheimer family has been into conservation for as long as we've been around. And it's become ever more important. You only have to see climate change happening now and what's going on in the world. And conservation and the science behind it is hugely important. We here in South Africa have, I think, a huge advantage because we've been at conservation for so long that we're really very good at it. And we've got so much to tell and to explain and interact with the rest of the world.
Let's begin with a question that might just surprise you. When you think of billionaires in Africa, who flashes across your mind? Maybe it's Aliko Dangote, the cement and sugar mogul from Nigeria, whose name is now synonymous with wealth across the continent. Or perhaps you picture flashy oil tycoons, crypto kings, or even global tech entrepreneurs of African descent making waves abroad. But now, take a step back. Think less about headlines and more about the hidden hands that pull the strings. What if I told you that some of Africa's deepest wells of wealth don't glitter on Instagram, don't pose for magazine covers, and rarely make public speeches? That behind the skyscrapers of Johannesburg, the luxury estates of Cape Town, and the vast open plains of the Kalahari, there exists a family dynasty so powerful, so deliberate, that they didn't just accumulate wealth, they quietly reshaped South Africa's entire economy, culture, and political structure for over a century. This is not the tale of overnight success or lucky breaks. This is the story of a family that turned dust into diamonds, diamonds into dominance, and dominance into dynasty. This is the saga of the Oppenheimer family. Once crowned the undisputed kings of the global diamond trade, the Oppenheimers didn't just get rich, they engineered wealth on a scale most people can't even fathom. At their peak, they controlled over 90% of the world's diamond supply through De Beers. That's not just a business, that's global leverage, that's soft power carved in stone. But what makes this family truly fascinating isn't just what they owned, it's how they moved. They operated in silence. They played the long game. While other tycoons were lighting cigars with headlines, the Oppenheimers were busy building something far more valuable, a legacy. Today they may no longer run De Beers, but they run something even more powerful, an empire of influence. From secret safari estates you can't even find on Google Maps, to multi-billion-dollar investments in fintech, green energy, and African startups, they've quietly pivoted from raw resources to refined strategy. They're not just rich, they're architects of wealth. They don't just live in luxury, they design systems that generate it for generations. So buckle up, because in this deep dive, we're peeling back the velvet curtain on South Africa's most powerful and private dynasty, how they built their fortune, how they keep it growing, and why the Oppenheimer name still echoes in every corner of Africa's economic elite. They didn't just write a rags to riches story, they wrote the rulebook. And now, we're opening it. Our story begins in the early 1900s, not in Johannesburg or Cape Town, but in Germany, with a young man named Ernest Oppenheimer. He wasn't born with a silver spoon, but he had something even better, an eye for opportunity and a heart that beat for diamonds. Ernest moved to South Africa in 1902 at just 22. Within a few decades, he became the chairman of De Beers, the company that would dominate 90% of the world's diamond trade. Yes, 90%. That's not a monopoly, that's practically a diamond dictatorship. But the real power move? The Oppenheimers didn't just sell diamonds. They controlled the supply, manipulated demand, and even coined the phrase that made their empire eternal. A diamond is forever. That wasn't just a slogan. It was a psychological masterstroke. It made every proposal a transaction with De Beers. How to quietly rule a continent. While the world gushed over their jewels, the Oppenheimers were playing chess, not checkers. They extended their control into Anglo-American Corporation, a massive mining conglomerate that held not just diamond mines, but gold, platinum, iron, coal, you name it. At one point, Anglo-American was responsible for half the value of the entire Johannesburg Stock Exchange. That's like owning the heartbeat of a nation. In the 1980s, De Beers held billions of dollars in diamond stockpiles just to keep prices artificially high. When supply exceeded demand, they simply hid the diamonds from the market. Imagine hoarding billions in shiny stones like they were marbles. Ernest passed the empire to his son Harry, who was not only a business titan but also a political force. During apartheid, he was an unlikely ally of democracy, supporting anti-apartheid movements and funding liberal opposition parties. A rare position for a man of his wealth and background. He was capitalism with a conscience, or so it seemed. Then came Nicky Oppenheimer, the quiet billionaire with a love for cricket and conservation. Nicky inherited the reins in the 1990s and soon made a decision that shocked the financial world. He sold De Beers. Yes, the family sold their crown jewel, quite literally, in a $5.1 billion deal to Anglo-American in 2012. People thought the dynasty was over. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. How they make their billions. Today selling De Beers was not the end. It was the beginning of a new playbook. With the proceeds, Nicky and his son Jonathan launched Stockdale Street and the Oppenheimer Generations Foundation, investment firms and philanthropic ventures designed to grow wealth in stealth mode. Instead of diamonds, they now focus on private equity, agribusiness, fintech, and green energy. In fact, they've invested in dozens of African startups that are shaping the future of finance and food security. It's wealth with a strategy, long-term, low-profile, and laser-focused. One of their companies provides smart farming tools using AI to help small African farmers triple their crop yields. That's billionaire impact with a conscience. Private jets and secret safaris. Let's not forget the luxury. The Oppenheimers owned Swalu Kalahari Reserve, the largest private game reserve in South Africa. Over 100,000 hectares of untouched wilderness. It's so exclusive, even the animals probably need a reservation. Guests fly in on private jets, dine under the stars with Michelin-level cuisine, and watch rhinos and lions from infinity pools. Some call it the African Versailles. Nicky calls it home. They also own properties in London, Switzerland, and possibly a few unmarked islands. The exact number of homes. Classified. The estimated family fortune. Over 8.3 billion haptepakaonyas. And that's just the public number. Unlike Elon Musk, who also happens to be South African born, or flashy billionaires like Richard Branson, the Oppenheimers play the quiet game. No Twitter rants, no reality shows, no mega yachts in Monaco. They're the definition of stealth wealth. Jonathan Oppenheimer, Nicky's son, now leads many of their ventures. Educated at Harrow in Oxford, he's described as charming but enigmatic. Kind of like James Bond, but with a boardroom instead of a gun. They've mastered the art of staying relevant without being noisy. They don't chase fame, they chase influence. Did you know that at one point the Oppenheimers had more political sway than some government ministers? They've quietly shaped South African economic policy for decades, advising presidents, funding education, even mediating land reform debates. One analyst once joked, if the ANC wants advice, they call Luthuli House. If they want solutions, they call Nicky. How do they really do it? So what's the secret to the Oppenheimer dynasty? Control the resources. They didn't just mine diamonds. They controlled their supply, marketing, and global value. Play long-term. From family succession to global investments, they think in generations, not quarters. Stay quiet. Stay rich. No scandals. No TikTok dances. Just quiet boardrooms and smart moves. Invest in the future. Whether it's renewable energy or education, they put their billions into what's coming next. Protect their legacy. The Oppenheimers aren't just building wealth. They're building institutions that will outlive them. Today, the Oppenheimer name is no longer about diamonds. It's about sustainable wealth, African innovation, and intergenerational power. They may have stepped out of the limelight, but their influence is deeper than ever. In a world chasing fast fame and quick money, the Oppenheimers are proof that real dynasties are built with patience, strategy, and an eye on the long game. So the next time you see a diamond sparkle on someone's hand, maybe at a wedding, an awards show, or even in a high-end boutique, take a closer look, not at the diamond, but at the story it hides. Because behind that brilliant little stone lies a legacy built not just on beauty, but on strategy, power, and control. A stone that once passed through the invisible hands of a South African family who turned the Earth's rawest elements into a global empire. An empire that didn't need the spotlight, didn't chase likes, trends, or TV deals. An empire that thrived in boardrooms, behind closed doors, in whispers, not roars. The Oppenheimers weren't just merchants of diamonds, they were merchants of perception. They didn't just sell luxury, they defined it. And long after they sold De Beers and walked away from the glittering world they once ruled, their influence continued to echo in the corridors of finance, conservation, and policy. Because when you build an empire on foundations that no one sees, it's not just indestructible, it's eternal. They didn't build their dynasty with noise or chaos. They built it with vision, with precision, and most of all, with silence. And that, my friends, is the loudest kind of wealth there is. Because true power doesn't scream. It doesn't beg to be seen. It simply moves the world, quietly,